All right, Jesse on Fire, welcome back to the channel. So let's do this thing. Let's talk about UFC 256 because, wow, that was a good fight, good card, good everything. Everything was good. 2020, say what you want, has been an incredible year for fights. I love the no crowds. I mean, I don't love the no crowds because, obviously I don't like the idea of people not being able to go watch them fight in person, but the sounds, like watching it on television or on a computer or whatever, when there are no crowds there is a different deal, man. You just hear the level of impact, and the quiet is awesome, I think. But yeah, incredible night of fights. Before I even get into it, let me just tell you guys what happened here. So UFC, the reason why I had to cancel the live last night was for like 3 different reasons, okay? So first off, I promised Gabrielle that we would celebrate our anniversary last night, forgot, okay? So I booked the live, didn't even remember that. Then at jiu-jitsu class, I invited my buddy over to watch the fights. He and I smashed heads and I, bled everywhere. And, I was like, of course, we'll come to my house with your kids and we'll watch the UFC. So I tell my wife that he's coming over with his kids, and she's like, I thought we're celebrating our anniversary. I was like, oh. So now I'm double booked, can't do the live. So I tell him he can't come over. We're going to do the anniversary. Then we forgot that our next door neighbors were having some graduation party. And so we had to go over there and do that. So anyway, bottom line is there were a multitude of reasons I had to cancel it. But I apologize. I won't do that generally. So anyway, let's get into this thing. So I actually just shot this video, but I went bottom up. Where I talked about the lower card fights first, and I was like, I don't want to make everyone sit through the bottom stuff if they want to get to the big stuff right out of the gate, right? So let's do it again. So that's what I'm doing for you guys. I'm going to reshoot this thing, and we'll go through the top fights first. So let's actually start with the Oliveira and Tony Ferguson fight, because I think that's the one that has the biggest impact going forward on, certainly on the most exciting division in the sport. So this is what I want to lead off with, okay? If you like the content, subscribe, ring the bell, tell your friends. Best MMA channel in the internet, in or on the internet. So, there's that. Anyway, all right. So, like, share, comment, etc. Buttons. Anyway, so Oliveira and Ferguson. Let me tell you what I saw a lot of commentary around that I just don't agree with at all. Matter of fact, I don't even understand what people were looking at, candidly. It turns out, yeah, so I guess Justin Gaethje did put too much damage on Tony Ferguson for him to recover. I'm like, what? Because obviously, I talked about this a million times on my channel, that the amount of damage that Tony took, it's going to be very hard for his body to recover from that at age 37, right? I said that a million times. But that's not, but when that happens to someone, the impact is clear. And that's not what I saw last night. That's just not what I saw. Right? When someone takes too much damage, what it looks like is that their reflexes are slow. They get knocked around easier, where they get wobbled, or they get knocked out easier, etc. Those types of things. What I saw last night was a vastly superior ground fighter beating a very, very excellent ground fighter. That's what I saw. Those guys on the feet, Tony did what he always does on the feet. He zombies forward. He always gets hit. Show me a fight where Tony Ferguson doesn't get hit in the head. He always gets hit in the head. What I saw was traditional Tony Ferguson against a very good striker in Oliveira, and then Oliveira took him to the ground, and Oliveira demonstrated that he is he's certainly the best pure jiu-jitsu fighter at 155, That doesn't include wrestling, submission wrestling, and jiu-jitsu, obviously, if we're talking about Khabib. But I'm certainly very interested in that fight, although it's not going to happen, I would, say pretty confidently. So that, and I'll get into that in a second. But that's what I saw. I didn't see a super diminished Tony Ferguson. I saw the same Tony Ferguson who was in a horrific stylistic matchup, right? Because they basically nullified each other on the feet, and then Oliveira is a madman on the ground. The fact that Tony didn't tap to that armbar was insane. Listen, obviously, if that's not the end of the round, it's over. Tony's not getting out of that, right? That ends with him popping his elbow or whatever. He's not getting out of that, right? So that would have been the end of the fight, and I'm actually curious to see what the medical report is, to see what kind of damage he did to that elbow or whatever, because it looked bad. That was torqued. It was super torque. But yeah, so But here's the other thing. So one thing that I saw on MMA Mania, an article written by Adam Guillen Jr., is he goes, do right by Oliveira and award him the next title shot. He said the UFC better do right by Oliveira and award him the next title shot. And I'm like, oh, okay, guy. Okay, that again, apparently everybody else can't see what I'm seeing, which is that's not what's going to happen. Okay, I mean, if Conor loses, right? If Conor loses to Dustin, maybe, right? And in that same article, they're like, oh, or maybe Oliveira could fight the winner of Dustin and Conor for who gets the next, for an interim belt. And I'm like, oh my gosh, guys, Khabib is still in the USADA testing pool. Okay, Khabib wants Eagle MMA launched on UFC. Like, this is not rocket science. Okay. Habib's going to be at UFC 257. He's going to be there in the building. Wow, what a coincidence. What a weird coincidence. He's going to be there at UFC 257 when Conor's fighting on the main event. Oh, weird. Like, I'm sure, it's all coincidence. I'm sure it's coincidence. But, who Oliveira is going to fight is going to fight the winner of Chandler and Gaethje. That's who he's going to fight. Okay, so just settle in. That's what's going to happen. Oliveira will fight the winner of Chandler and Gaethje, unless Dustin Poirier wins. Like, they're not going to make another Khabib and Dustin Poirier fight. That's not going to happen. That I promise you. So I guess it's possible that if Dustin beats Conor, that Oliveira theoretically could get a title shot. But listen, man, like, if it's Khabib's 30th and last fight, Dana's not going to put Khabib in there with anyone other than a super fight. All right? Like, they're just plain and simple. Like, plain and simple. And Oliveira is awesome, and we all know how awesome he is, and we actually know that he's a very interesting stylistic matchup against Khabib because he's incredible on the ground. Like, I mean, I don't think I'm gonna be speaking out of turn saying that Khabib has never fought anyone whose jiu-jitsu pedigree is like Oliveira's. But that said, I'm not saying that he would beat Khabib because in jiu-jitsu you don't get to punch people in the face. And listen, like, there's been essentially no evidence that anyone can do anything to Khabib on the ground. So I'm certainly not saying that he would. It would be an interesting stylistic matchup. But the bottom line is, now we're talking business. Like I've been saying all along, we're talking business now. There's no fucking way that Khabib is going to fight Oliveira in his last fight. It's not going to happen. Just let it go, right? So yeah. Honestly, there's a better chance of Khabib fighting Michael Chandler than Oliveira because at least he has a bigger name, But again, we know where I sit and why I think it's going to happen. Money, okay? Money. It's a business, right? Anyway, so yeah, and that was the other weird thing. That was another really weird thing. I posted on my YouTube, but like last night they did a graphic and they were like, longest active winning streaks. And it's like Kamaru Usman, Amanda Nunes, Israel Adesanya, Volkanovski, Charles Oliveira, Leon Edwards. I'm like, well, that's leaving out a pretty big name. And people were like, he's not active. I'm like, he is currently the belt holder who's in the USADA pool, okay? Like, he's not retired. Like, he's not really retired. He's not really, he hasn't put out an additional statement. Everybody's talking about, is he going to fight? He hasn't put out, like, in my opinion, they're setting up for this to be this big surprise that he's going to fight Conor after Conor beats Dustin. But again, let me just make very clear. If and when that happens, I am going to gloat, okay? So just prepare yourselves for that, right? And hopefully you guys are happy that I called it. Anyway, so yeah, that's that. All right, so now let's talk about Moreno and Figueiredo because goddamn, man, what a fight. So let me just also say one other thing that I disagree with, okay? Like, people are saying that's fight of the year. That's not fight of the year, okay? Incredible fight. One of the best fights of the year. But if you go back and you watch Wei Li and Joanna and you tell me that this fight was better than that one, I'm going to disagree with you. It was incredible fight. Like, I'm not taking anything away from these guys. And both these guys won last night. But yeah. No. I am curious though on these win, but like, what happens if it's a draw in terms of the win bonus? They split, they get like half their win bonus or something. In terms of their contract, I'm curious about that. But yeah, listen, like, here's the deal. Moreno went in there, an incredible fighter that a lot of fighters knew and a handful of hardcores knew. And coming out of that fight, main event performance like that, Mexican fighter from Mexico, first Mexican fighter to ever fight for a title, and then he does that. Like, you know, he literally lives up to all the like stereotypes about you know, Mexican born fighters. Just absolute no break in them, no matter what. Just a piece of iron, right? And just fighting all the way to the end against the toughest 125 pounder to ever do it. I mean, I honestly think Figueiredo is as good as I mean, I would love to see him fight Triple C, obviously, but you know, at least in terms of like him putting it on you, man. You know, like Demetrius Johnson, obviously, you know, had the most wins and all that, but like I feel like the division has changed since him, and he had a very complete game, but he's not like a guy who put it on you like that. You know, he was slick. He would submit you. He'd wrestle you. He could beat you on the feet. But he wasn't a guy that punished people like Figueiredo. Like Figueiredo punishes people. He's kicking your body. He's kicking your legs. He's punching your face. He's taking you down. He's trying to strangle you. Like he's gonna hurt you, man. And Moreno took it, and he hit Figueiredo with a lot of shots too. So Moreno's a winner now. Like everybody knows his name. Everybody's gonna remember his name. I think that, had he won like a first round, like caught Figueiredo with a punch, I actually don't think that would have been as good for his career as this, where like a hard fought 5-round war to a draw. You know, where like now people are like, damn, that guy, like which is going to make people more excited to watch him fight next time is the 5-round war to a draw. I think, you know, I think. Because that's the kind of thing where people are watching and they're like inspired, and you're watching like, man, this fight is unbelievable. It's like, as opposed to like one time, you know, he knocks him out and you get this big one-time dopamine hit, versus, you know, it over and over, and you're like, oh my gosh, man, this guy. And so you associate that feeling with the guy. And so Moreno, he's the man. And Figueiredo is my dude. I love that guy. He is fast becoming one of my favorite fighters in the UFC. Absolutely. I really hope he learns how to speak English, because that'll be great for his career. But yeah, they'll run it back. They'll run it back. So the other fights I wanted to talk about real quick. So Kevin Holland, and I actually want to talk about Kevin Holland and Cyril Gane and Jacare Souza and JDS, and those two fights, because they're very similar. And I'll tell you exactly what I mean. So the UFC said that they're chopping their roster, right? Like they're gonna chop a lot of people off the roster. They just let go of Yoel Romero. I still think that that's pretty crazy, to be honest with you. Like, I know he's, you know, 0-4 in his last 4, and he's 44, whatever, but like, he's not really slowing down, man. And he lost very tight decisions. I will say this: the video that I did about Yoel Romero getting passed on by Bellator, and that being a huge mistake by Bellator, I still stand by it, because I think they should have used him so that people want to watch Bellator, and then they learn who all these other fighters are on the undercards or on the main card, whatever. But I think what Scott Corker was actually thinking is, he's like, this guy's going to come in and he's going to beat the shit out of all my fighters. And then he's going to retire because he's 44. So like, what, I get him for like 18 months, 2 years max. He beats all my fighters and then he's gone. That just doesn't seem like smart business. It'll just make us look like an inferior organization. He's 0-4 in the UFC, and then he annihilates all my fighters, which is exactly what would have happened, right? So I can see why he passed on him, you know. But Yoel, he'll fight in one FC, and that'll be exciting, right? But yeah, but UFC is making tremendous cuts. Okay, so JDS was 0-3 with 3 knockouts in his last 3 fights. And you got Jacare, who's lost a bunch in a row. Very tight decisions in many cases, but lost a bunch in a row. But he's got a big name, just like JDS. And listen, the UFC is a business, man. Like, it's a business. It's a business that'll sound cold-blooded, but it's a business. And the bottom line is, the business of the UFC is promoting fights. And how do you promote fights? You promote fighters. And how do you promote fighters? You need people to know their names. And how do you get people to know their names? You have them beat guys whose names they already know, right? So those 2 fights were setups. They just were, man. Like, those 2 fights were setups, like, because Jacare and JDS were on the chopping block, plain and simple. It's like, if they win, they stay on. If they lose, they're gone. And for that reason, we'll put them against 2 really hot up-and-comers that we want to launch, right? So, you know, it's kind of like a, you know, win-win. They're obviously rooting for the younger guys to win, like Cyril Gane, new blood, Kevin Holland. Like, these are 2 real hot new fighters. Cyril Gane, I mean, he's a 260-pound professional kickboxer who's like a world champion. He's a savage, man. Like he's only 6-0 in MMA, but like he's a lifetime professional fighter. And the heavyweight division is light. I mean, it really is, man. Like you look at like, okay, you got Stipe, you've got Francis, and then a bunch of people that both those guys have beat. Honestly, like that is what the heavyweight division is. Like you need new blood, because like, okay, so let's say Francis beats Stipe, which is what I think will happen. You do a rematch, you do the trilogy fight. Okay, then what? Okay, because both guys have already beat everyone else, right? You need new blood. You need it bad, right? So Cyril Gane and Cyril Gane is not an easy matchup for Francis. Like that's one fight that. That's the only fight in the heavyweight division that gives me pause when it comes to Francis, just because that guy's just as big and he's, maybe not quite as much power, but close, and he's he's a surgeon. As surgical as a 265-pound heavyweight can be. But yeah, I mean, so that, and then you got Kevin Holland, who's won 4 in a row. He had a big thing after his last fight where he got into it with Israel Adesanya, so people were like, paying attention to him. They're like, what's this guy going to do? They put him against Jacare. Everyone knows Jacare, and he had an incredible performance. Right? Like Jacare, knew he's on the chopping block, so he goes straight to jiu-jitsu, which is where he thinks he has the advantage. And Kevin Holland was putting him in defensive positions that whole time. I was watching next door with some people, and I was like, look, he's got him in a bad spot. He's not going to submit Jacare. Like he's like, that's not going to happen. But he had Jacare on the defensive the whole time, and then he hit him with that shot and knocked him out. I mean, that was an incredible performance. I mean, really, 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 really impressive that he was able to handle Jacare like that on the ground. So he's got a very complete game. I mean, he's good. Kevin Holland is good. He's a good fighter. He's going to be tough to beat. So that's great. And then Cyril Gane, Jacare will get cut and JDS will get cut. I mean, that's what'll happen. It's cutthroat business, but the UFC got exactly what they wanted last night. That's exactly what they wanted. The other two I wanted to mention were, Cub Swanson. So another guy where so you can tell by the matchup, Pineda, it's like Cub Swanson's kind of in that same situation, and they got Pineda who's a great fighter, but people know Cub Swanson, they like him, but Cub Swanson knows, he's 37 years old, and if he doesn't win, he knows he's probably getting cut, and he came out there and he won by knockout. And did you guys see him scream after that knockout, man? Like that was so awesome, man. I was so happy for him, because like you just got to put yourself in his position. He's sitting there like he's fighting for his life. Like he's literally fighting for his life. He's fighting to be able to continue to do the thing that he loves to do, the only thing he's ever done, right? It might even be about money too. Like who knows what he's doing on the side? Like, not everybody's got a business where they're financially stable absent, fighting. And so he might have everything on the line. And that he definitely had everything on the line in his last fight. And he won by knockout, or no, he won a really impressive decision in the last one. And then in this one, I mean, dude, that was like a primal scream after he knocked him out. It was just like, Pineda's good. He'll come back. I mean, he's a tough guy, but man, Cub Swanson looked good. He looked really, really good. I was very happy for him. And the last thing I want to talk about is just Rafael Fiziev. That guy, jeez, man. That guy has, he knocked out Renato Moicano. Incredible striking. Surgical, fast, lightning fast, and surgically accurate. I mean, I don't really even know what to say about it, except that I am excited to watch him fight again. But the only thing I'll say about the stoppage is this. Like, Moicano complained about the stoppage, and I understand why, because it looked like he was pulling guard. But here's what I know, okay? A guy like Renato Moicano has been doing jiu-jitsu his entire life. Like, his leg did that on muscle memory, okay? Like, he was not there, right? Like, when he tried to stand up, he fell over. Like, that was a good stoppage. So it made sense why people were like, ooh, I don't know about that. I don't know about that stoppage, because guys who know jiu-jitsu know he was pulling guard, which is he's in the fight. It's a defensive position. I actually don't think he actually was in the fight. I think that he has certain things that are literally just muscle memory, right? Like just plain and simple muscle memory, and one of them is pulling guard when a guy's coming down on you like that. I think he just was pulling guard and just on autopilot. Like he wasn't gonna, he wasn't going to sweep him and take his back, and you know what I mean? Like, he's just, anyway. But, so I do think it was a good stoppage, and I didn't have any complaints about it. But anyway, so incredible night of fights. That's what I've got. Subscribe to the rich. Subscribe to the channel. Ring the bell. Tell your friends. Oh, by the way, big things on Jesse on Everything, huh? Just blowing up. Just blowing up, you know? Yeah, so I did the interview with Sammy the Bull Gravano. I only put 2 of the videos up, and they have a combined like 80,000 views or something like, or I don't know, 70,000 views. So that's good. And me and Sammy are talking. We're gonna do more things. So exciting. I haven't put another video up because I'm like, I don't even know what to do now. I got like, you know, obviously it's a brand new channel. It's only been up for a little like 3 months, but I got, you know, I doubled my subscriber base, so I need to think real hard about what I want to put up. I'm going to put up an old story. I'm going to put up a story. I'm going to put up, actually, I think I'm going to tell a story. That's the very first story that I ever told on this YouTube, and then I deleted the video. But yeah, so, because, you know, it was part of the purge. The purge when, you know, people at my work started finding my social media, my TikTok. I literally purged all my stories because I had, you know, all kinds of fucked up shit on there. But anyway, so yeah, look for that. Jesse on Everything is in full effect. So if you like the content, subscribe and ring the bell. Tell your friends.